So hi everyone, I am Mr. Ian Indahao. I am a math student. We are tasked to select three articles, and then we actually make a presentation out of the approved articles. Now, these are the three articles that I'll be presenting. First is Unpacking Novice English Language Teachers' Cognitions about global English pedagogy and activity theoretic analysis. Second would be Trends of English as Medium Instruction in Science Learning, Review and Bibliometric Analysis. And lastly would be, alright, the use of metacognitive strategies in storytelling to examine preschool children's listening comprehension skills. Now I'll be discussing these three articles one by one. Alright, so the first article would be the use of metacognitive strategies in storytelling to examine preschool children listening comprehension skills. Now this would be its abstract. Now listening comprehension is necessary for successful learning and communication in the modern digital age. Now, studies have shown that early exposure to listening activities can significantly impact the development of listening comprehension skills, especially in preschool children, as their cognitive and linguistic abilities rapidly develop. Now, the purpose of this qualitative study is to explore the use of metacognitive strategies in storytelling to examine preschool children's listening comprehension skills in preschool children in Kampong, Malaysia. Now, data was collected through the checklist and anecdotal observation to observe 6 children's engagement in 3 storytelling sessions. The study was done in 2 phases. Phase 1 involved data collection of the teacher's current teaching instruction and challenges faced during teaching and learning. And the second phase would be involved designing appropriate metacognitive strategies to examine children's English listening comprehension skills. Now, this study showed metacognitive strategies could help preschool children with listening comprehension skills. Alright, let's talk about its introduction. Now, stories have existed since a cave drawing as far back as 30,000 years. Now, storytelling has become an important component of education as it has many advantages as a teaching technique. Storytelling can motivate children, that is according to Kasami 2021, as these children in remembering new words, Wood 2016, encourage learning English, Isbell 2022, and have access to low-cost media to teach rich language experiences, Wright 2008. Now, children can develop early literacy through reading and storytelling and simple games such as letter games, listening for sounds and words and looking for pictures, letters, and words in the environment. That is according to Lassim and Andy 2017. Storytelling can also address literacy development by improving listening, oral language, and that it's for the oral language, reading, comprehension, and writing. Now, listening, according to Abdul, Lukman, and Zaini 2017, stories are useful materials teachers can use to develop listening comprehension and literacy in their first and second language. Now, this reinforces Mello 2001 research on how storytelling could enhance fluency, vocabulary, writing, and recall literacy. Next, let's talk about metacognitive strategies and listening comprehension skills. Now, recent years have seen a rise in interest in the study of metacognition as a topic of particular significance in educational research due to its capacity to provide students with the vocabulary and abilities to monitor, manage, and hopefully improve children's thinking process. That is according to Vandergrift 2019. However, much of this research was for older children and not many involved preschool children. However, the Boer et al. 2018 say metacognitive knowledge and skills emerge early, still it takes time. Explicit teacher training, scaffolding, modeling, and plenty of practice for students to become proficient metacognitive adults. There was also much evidence supported by various meta-analyses showing a strong relationship between metacognitive strategies and children's achievements. That is according to the Bow et al. 2018. Now, with this in mind, research has shown that experienced listeners use twice as many metacognitive strategies as less skilled listeners. That is according to Vandergrift 2003. Now, their strategies are more towards comprehension monitoring, a combination of questioning and world knowledge. Now, and logical possibilities, unlike less skilled listeners who tend to use more mental translation. Now, this is not surprising if we revert to M. Hawke's 2010 definition of listening, which states that listening is an intentional action that requires self-regulation. Now, this would clearly explain why metacognitive strategy improve listening skills. Next is listening comprehension processes. Now, listening comprehension is a complex cognitive process that involves the interaction between the speaker's message, the listener's background knowledge, and the listener's attention and memory processes. Now, it involves many processes that many second language learners with low-level languages, such as preschool children, find difficult. However, native and proficient second language speakers have no problem understanding complex speech comprehension. Now, according to Pour Hossein and Al-Mahdi 2011, despite second language learners' problems, they can control their learning and listen actively. Now, he further explains this can be done by relying on listening strategies to overcome incomprehension. Alright, so let's talk about its conceptual framework. Now, this is the conceptual framework of this article. So, figure 1 explains the conceptual framework of the research. Now, in the storytelling, the researcher used 4 metacognitive strategies: connecting the concept of the story to the schemata, that is children's prior knowledge. Next, explaining the objective of the storytelling using questioning techniques, and scaffolding, that is giving options, moment-to-moment feedback, and chunking information. Now, this would help the children in their listening comprehension skills. The children's listening comprehension was assessed using the following activities: retelling the story, arranging the story sequence using pictures, completing oral questions with options given, read aloud from the worksheet, and justifying the answers given and justifying the given answer. So, this is the figure of the conceptual framework. Now, let's talk about its methodology. Now, this research employed a qualitative research approach and a case study as its research design. Now, this approach was chosen to help the researcher comprehend what was practiced in the natural setting. Checklists and anecdotal reports were the primary methods for collecting data on children's listening comprehension skills. Now, the research was done in 2 phases to allow the researcher to understand better what is being practiced in natural setting. In the first phase, it was essential to understand private preschool teachers' current teaching strategies and the difficulties faced when developing children's listening comprehension skills. Now, the teachers were interviewed and the data were transcribed verbatim. Now, the transcription was then coded and common themes were extracted. Now, this stage was crucial because it provided insights into practitioners' perspectives on the issues and strategies used in storytelling. Now, the practitioner's perspective were essential for developing acceptable and helpful strategies to improve the children's learning comprehension skills during storytelling. The researcher created 3 lesson plans in the second phase based on the information gathered in phase 1. So the phase 1 the National Preschool Standard-Based Curriculum, the NPSC. Listening and learning theories. Preschoolers need a systematic approach to improve their listening comprehension skills. Now, the study employed the mastery learning model, metacognitive strategies, and cognitive constructivist theory as a framework to create the teaching strategies needed in the three-lesson plans. Three subject matter experts reviewed the teaching strategies used in three-lesson plans. Each lesson's duration was 45 minutes. Preschool lessons were generally between 30 to 45 minutes in Malaysian preschools. Before implementing the lesson, the teachers underwent 3 hours of briefing. A dry run was done to foresee potential problems during the lessons. Now, the lessons were recorded using 2 cameras placed at different classroom corners. The decision to use 3 lessons was based on previous research done by Santos 2018. To study children listening comprehension skills, 3 storybooks chosen for this research were based on the complexity and familiarity of the books to the children, as the respondents were Chinese-speaking children who lacked the vocabulary and were more familiar with Asian culture. So as you can see, the table 1, this is the list of storybooks. So the lesson 1, the title of the storybook is The Blue Balloon, and the author was Mick Infant 2019. The second lesson, title of the book would be The Ugly Duckling. It's by Hans Christian Andersen 2019. And the third would be My Monster and Me, Nadia Hussein 2019. Each storytelling was divided into 3 parts: pre-listening, while listening, and post-listening. Metacognitive strategies were used in all 3 stages. In the pre-listening stage, the teacher discusses the book cover to help children understand the concept of the story and link it to their prior knowledge, build interest in the story, explain difficult words found in the story, and inform the children of the objective of listening to the story. Now, this is especially important for inexperienced listeners such as preschool children. The while listening stage was the storytelling session, where the teachers use facial and body expressions, proper speed in telling the story, and cues and pictures to help them understand the story. The teachers are also given facilitation and support through scaffolding throughout the lesson. Scaffolding is an essential component in metacognitive instruction, as it helps children realize their thinking process and give children the knowledge to complete their listening tasks and motivate them. That is according to James 2010. Pause activities are carried out to reinforce and help teachers assess children's understanding. So refer to table 2. Now this is the implementation of the lesson. So you may just read it by your own. Okay. Next would be the sample. A private registered preschool in Kepong, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia provided the data for the study. The researcher chose this preschool because it satisfied various study requirements. The National Preschool Standard-Based Curriculum, which is the school's primary curriculum, qualifies this preschool as appropriate because it would provide the researcher with a thorough picture of the actual scenario. Now, since the researcher wanted to ensure the study was conducted in a realistic preschool setting, using the National Preschool Standard-Based Curriculum was vital. Now, due to the limited sample size, non-probability sampling was used in this case study. The study aimed to investigate a real-world phenomenon rather than draw any generalizations from the data. That is according to Yin 2009. In this study, 6 preschool children from 2 classes were selected purposely. 4 children were males and 2 were females. Now, the children were grouped into advanced, average, and weak groups based on the children's English progress report. Now, these children were in the same age group and were born in 2014, 6 years. And then refer table 3, the qualitative data were collected using anecdotal observations. So You may refer to this table 3. This is the demography of participants. Alright. Now let's talk about its methods of data analysis. Now this research used the checklist to record the children's listening comprehension. In addition to the checklist, anecdotal data were gathered to provide a more comprehensive understanding of the children's listening comprehension abilities. Anecdotal data provides qualitative observations and descriptions of children's behavior, engagement, and interactions during the storytelling sessions. Triangulating the data with anecdotal data allows a more holistic assessment of children's listening comprehension skills. 2 video recorders were placed at different corners during the teaching and learning session to record the teachers conducting their lessons and the engagement of the 6 children in the study. After each session, the researcher immediately watched the video and recorded the observation using the checklist and anecdotal records. Now, take a look at this result. Now, the research used metacognitive strategies in storytelling to examine children's listening comprehension skills. Now, a checklist was developed to assess children's listening comprehension skills by observing their abilities in doing 3 main tasks: retelling the story, organizing the sequence of the story using picture cards, and answering oral questions with given options. Now, the checklist had 9 items based on the 3 main tasks, and the children's abilities were assessed on a scale from 1 to 5. So you may refer to this table for the scale used in the checklist. Okay, so 1 cannot perform, so indicator would be unable to do the task even with assistance given. 2, poor, able to do the task with many missing information or mistakes or with a lack of assistance. 3, average, able to do the task with some missing information or mistakes or with some assistance. 4, good, able to do the task with very little missing information or mistakes or able to do with little assistance. And 5 would be excellent, able to do the task well without any assistance. Now, anecdotal observation was also done during the storytelling session. This was used to triangulate the data from the checklist to allow for a more holistic assessment. Now, the researcher looked for recurring behaviors, interactions, or responses that stood out and were aligned with the research objective. The observation was coded and grouped into the anecdotal record to facilitate looking for common patterns or themes. Now, this would give a deeper understanding of how they may influence the children's listening comprehension abilities. Now, the data were then compared and contrasted to the checklist data. The children categorized into 3 levels of English competencies based on their class English performance. The result of this study will answer the research objective of examining preschool children's listening comprehension skills. Now, the result will be presented based on the 3 levels the children were categorized in. Now, let's talk about advanced children. Child 1 and Child 4 were categorized as advanced children. Child 1 is fluent in English language and speaks both languages at home. Child 4, on the other hand, even though he is fluent in English, only speaks Mandarin at home. Referring to the checklist, Child 1 scored 5 for retelling for all 3 sessions. He had no problem retelling the story in all 3 lessons, but Child 4 scored 3 in the first session and 4 in the others 2. He had issues in the first session in retelling the main events and key details. He always missed out on relevant information. Both children had no problems with the story sequence during the retelling session. Based on the anecdotal report, Child 4 always seemed to be in haste when retelling the story. However, when Child 4 was questioned and asked to justify his answers, he could answer confidently. Now, this showed Child 4 did comprehend the story but left out relevant information due to his haste. He, however, manages to give the gist of the story. Now, both children had difficulty inferring in the third story as it needed extra thinking, as the monster is a metaphor for the boy's emotions. Child 1 could not infer story 3 at the beginning. However, when the teacher broke the information into chunks and gave moment-to-moment feedback, he could provide an accurate answer confidently. Now, the anecdotal report showed both children were very responsive and actively answering questions, especially in the third storytelling session. Both children were active and dominant during the post-listening activities, especially during the card activity, where the children arranged the picture cards according to the sequence of the story. And let's talk about average children. Child 2 and Child 5 were categorized as average children. Child 2 is timid, does not speak much English in school, and only speaks Mandarin at home. Child 5 is a fanboy who likes interacting with friends. He converses primarily in Mandarin in school and only Mandarin at home. Child 2 scored 1 in the first storytelling session and scored 4 in the second and 3 in the third. In the first storytelling session, Child 2 could not retell the story but looked blankly at the teacher. Being a timid child and having to recall the story for the first time, the experience could be too overwhelming for her. Now she could not say anything even when the teacher tried to coax her. Now the second story was more manageable as she heard the story before. In the third session, Child 2 retelling abilities improved. Although it was a new story, she could retell part of the story with assistance. Child 2 showed improvement in her ability to tell the story sequence and could answer specific questions. Child 2 showed noticeable improvement in listening comprehension. Child 5 scored 2 for retelling the first and third story and 3 for the second story. However, he got the sequence of the story correct. Child 5, although he listened attentively to the story, he did not seem to understand the story completely. Referred to Table 5, Child 5, however, was confident in answering the questions as options were given to assist him in answering the questions. So this showed that although he had some understanding, it was difficult for him to communicate what he understood due to his limited vocabulary. Now this is the Table 5. This is the transcribed data on anecdotal records for average children. Now the observation was, although the teacher read the sentence several times, Child 5 continued to misunderstand until she explained the sentence in Mandarin to everyone. Child 5. So subcategory unable to understand, source C5AR 3. And finally, the weak children. Now, the weak children were children 3 and 6. Now, both children could speak mainly in Mandarin but could understand English and respond when needed. Child 3 is very passive and has a limited vocabulary. He had difficulty retelling the story. In the first session, he could not retell the story and just said, "I forgot," refer Table 6 later on. However, in story sessions 2 and 3, the teacher got him to continue retelling the story after assisting with the first part. Now, this strategy helped the child, refer to Table 7. So, Child 6 also had a problem retelling the stories. However, she did put in effort when assistance was given. Both children could arrange the pictures with assistance from the teacher. So both children could answer the questions as options were given to assist them, and this showed that some understanding did occur. So this is Table 6, the transcribed data on anecdotal records for weak children. So the observation was, Child 3 could not retell the story. When the teacher encouraged him, he explained in Mandarin that he had forgotten. It was Child 3. Subcategory ability to understand, source ARL22 to L23. Observation next, the teacher tries to scaffold by asking, what happens when the monster gets smaller? Bob answered while looking at the space. Now the boy stands with the monster and the monster will see. Child 3 answers. And the subcategory ability to understand, and source ARL32, L33. And this is the Table 7, so I will no longer read the checklist. So technically this is the checklist. Alright, that's it. And for the discussion, now this qualitative study involved 6 preschool children in a private preschool in Kapong, Malaysia. Now the research objective was to examine private preschool children listening comprehension skills when metacognitive strategies were used during storytelling. Now, the result indicated metacognitive strategy had a positive result on the listening comprehension of the preschool children. Now, this result tallied with, according to Young 2018 study, where metacognitive strategies were applied to advance this program. Students at the Thai Nguyen University of Technology and Hashiman and Farhang 2020 study, where metacognitive strategies were tested on how to learners' listening comprehension skills in Iran. Although the results were not apparent for the weak students, they showed some improvement according to the teachers, as previously they could not answer any questions. Now, this study showed that a successful strategy was needed to facilitate second language listening comprehension, especially for these children with little English mastery. Metacognition is a difficult strategy for young children. However, it managed to help them in their listening comprehension. Metacognition strategies used during the pre-listening skills help the children acquire the top-bottom process quickly, and they were given specific instructions and made aware of the objective of listening and linking the story to their prior knowledge. Furthermore, this study introduced difficult words in the pre-listening stage, which helped the children. Children who are poor speakers of English tend to translate what they listen. This will overemphasize the bottom-up process, GO 2000. Furthermore, studies by GO 2000, U 2003, and ZADA 2001 suggest that L2 listeners must develop better word recognition skills and resist mentally translating and overemphasizing bottom-up skills, which delay the children's comprehension. Even the teacher said they felt the translation of words helped children understand better. In conclusion, this qualitative study was interesting as not much research was done on listening comprehension skills at the preschool level, especially in Malaysia. Now, the study showed although listening comprehension skills involve a complex multi-step procedure, providing metacognitive instructions help enhance preschool children's listening comprehension skills. Now, the children showed interest and better comprehension of the stories, which was impossible before. Developing listening comprehension skills also allows children to be active listeners, which is essential in communication, especially in digital era. So that ends the first part of the video, which is on the use of metacognitive strategies in storytelling to examine preschool children's listening comprehension skills. So, I'll be explaining the next article in the next video.